Pisces, Happy New Year. It's Susan with your 2024 overview for the sun and the moon and the rising sign in Pisces. Please read the description below this video for more details on that. So it's especially accurate for your ascendant sign, what we call the rising sign as well, because it will show up in those places that I'm referring to as I'm doing this reading. But it also is very significant for the sun, which is going to reflect your sense of purpose and your career, and also for your moon, which is much more your internal experience of life. So do watch for all three. Unless they're all three in Pisces, then you're in the right place. And I will just give you the highlights of what I think is important for 2024. So we're looking at particularly the significant transits, not the little nitty-gritty things. I'll come back and look at those as the year goes on. But these are things for you to take note of as you plan your year ahead, as you look at how things are going to evolve for you going forward. So Pisces, we've got, of course, the most significant thing in January happening already with in your 12th house with the ingress of Pluto and the sun on the same day on the 21st of January. So it's a pretty big deal when Pluto changes signs. So for Pisces, you're going to have this experience in a much more hidden part of your life. It may not be that obvious to people what's going on in terms of Pisces because it's going to be in that area of your unconscious, or what is hidden from you, but it can also bring you an enormous amount of power and connection to those hidden aspects of yourself, including like hidden skills and psychic abilities, pardon me, and talents that you might have that are emerging from this part of your chart. That can come also through connection to ancestral understanding or ancestral connections of some description. This will make Pisces even more psychic or even more aware of the world beyond. But if we're looking at this from a more material day-to-day level, then this can also be about foreign lands, foreign travel, transformation in terms of where you want to live or where you want to travel to. And that's something that might change, particularly in the later months of 2024 when Mars moves into your 5th house and trines your 9th house, encouraging you to move and travel and go in a new direction. We'll have a look at that later. And so Pluto is going through that 12th house for 20 years, Pisces. So you will have it there until it starts to retrograde back into your 11th house on the 2nd of September. So it retrogrades back into Capricorn on the 2nd of September. It's already in retrograde motion at 2 degrees on the 2nd of May. And that it's going back as far as 29 degrees of Capricorn. That's the farthest in it will get. And it's already been there basically through 2023 and in January of 2024. So it's not new territory, but it's kind of going back to close things out. And for you, Pluto has been in your 11th house, changing your vision for your future, changing your sense of what your role is in society or in groups. Changing your sense of your friendships as well. Who are your friends, and who do you want to be with? What groups do you hang out with, and who do you feel connected to? And so that might be one last glimpse at that, one last opportunity to sense what that's all about for you. And when that happens, Mars will be in your 5th house at the end of Cancer, and so there will be an opposition between Pluto and Mars from your 11th to your 5th house. And so that can be one more way of looking at, what is it that I really want? What did I want to create? Have I done that? Have I accomplished the thing that I wanted to and brought it out to the world? And so that can be one last push in that direction in the first week of November and exact on the 3rd. I'll touch on that again as we go through the year. So very significant. Do listen to the video on Pluto in Aquarius, because I can't go into that much detail with these readings. I'm just giving an overview here. So that will go into much more depth about what the 12th house represents, how that might look for you, and for that matter, what the 11th house represents. And you can go and review what you've experienced over the last 15 years. So we're looking at 20 years now, pretty much, of Pluto in your 12th house, reshaping you from behind the veil, as it were. We have Chiron conjunct Rahu, or the North Node, in your second house. So this is about money, about your finances, about potentially your family as well, your self-worth as well, potentially around investments or around things that you own. Now, it's not new because Chiron has been here since the end of April 2018. And the North Node has been here since mid-July of 2023. So these energies separately are not new, but what's new is that they are coming together in the middle of February. So it's active for roughly a week or 10 days around that midpoint of February, but it's exact on the 19th of February. And it's at 16 degrees and 45 minutes of Aries. And so we're looking at the degree points between sort of 15 and 19 very intensively, and anything that is around that 16, 17, 18 degrees, or say 13, 14, 15 degrees is going to be really impacted. But 15 to 19 degrees of Aries is really significant from January all the way through to April. So but for those of you who have anything in Aries or any other cardinal signs, that will really show up. It's not so obvious to Pisces in terms of the ascendant or the sun or the moon, but definitely you will feel that in some way related to your money, your values, and so on. And that is then followed by an eclipse in Libra on the 25th of March. That's in your 8th house of shared resources. That's a penumbral lunar eclipse. So the moon is in Libra and the sun is in the 2nd house again. So there's a lot of emphasis in 2024 on your axis of resources, shared resources, the money that you earn, the money that other people earn, what you get from other people. There's a very strong emphasis on you having to become financially independent, on you having to take more either responsibility or realize obstacles to your financial success, where you might be your own worst enemy with it, where it comes to money. And as a Pisces stellium, I feel you. Pisces don't really bother too much about money. It does depend on the chart, of course, but Pisces is not really associated with big money. It's not usually a driver. But anyway, it depends on your chart. So it's not always easy to manage money for a Pisces. And that, of course, depends on Mars and the placement of Mars in your chart, because it's ruling your 2nd house of money. And so this can have a very strong impact on you in 2024. We then have the 2nd house lit up around the 8th of April, where there's a total solar eclipse happening in Aries, and that is exactly conjunct Chiron at 19 degrees. So here we come back to that range of 15 to 19 degrees, because the North Node will be at 15 degrees, and Chiron itself will be at 19 degrees, along with the sun and the moon in your 2nd house. So lots of highlighting there around money, around income, around investment, around your sense of value. This can also, again, be with regards to your family, who supports you, how much support do you get. Venus will be in there, a retrograde Mercury will be in there. It's a big stellium of busyness happening in your 2nd house pretty much throughout April. And that Mercury retrograde is from the 1st of April until the 25th of April. So that's another way of reviewing all of this stuff. Whatever that is, it's going to be something you're deeply reflecting on. So new things coming in, but you're also having to maybe go over old territory or reflect on your relationship to all of it. And then we have later in the month of April, on the 21st, we have the famous Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. That's happening for you in the 3rd house at 21 degrees and 50 minutes, 2150 of Taurus. And that's in a very strong sextile. Well, it's in a sextile, let's say, to Neptune in your 1st house, and that is building to an exact sextile with Jupiter and Neptune in your 1st house. So Neptune being your modern ruler, Jupiter being your traditional ruler. I tend to work with only the traditional rulers, but it's worth mentioning anyway. Jupiter is pulling the 3rd house energy into your 1st house and vice versa. And so here we have a really strong emphasis on money, on commerce, on how you engage with your community, how you speak, how you communicate. This is an opportunity to creatively express yourself, or to write, or to start something new, like a website, or something that, or launching a book, or doing something that is connected to your communication. Third house can be around your siblings. It can be around particularly younger siblings, but not necessarily so. It doesn't have to be only, and extended family members. So there may be something there, or around your neighbors and neighborhood and your sort of everyday life that might be changing. There might be something quite sudden and unexpected that comes up there. And so later in the month, through rather into May, we then have Jupiter moving into your fourth house. So this is very significant because it's an angular house. Just as it's on the way out of the third house, Jupiter on the 23rd of May is going to be conjoining Venus, which is ruling it in the third house. So Jupiter will be conjunct Venus through most of May, but exact on the 23rd of May. Then it conjoins the Sun on the 24th of May, and the 24th is also when we have the exact sextile between Jupiter and Neptune, your two so-called rulers. And then on the 25th of May, we have Jupiter moving into the fourth house, just following the Sun and Venus, who just moved in ahead of it. All of that creating this fabulous conjunction just in the early degrees of your fourth house, in a trine to your Pluto in the 12th house. Something to do with your ancestry, your lineage, your family, your property, perhaps your conscious or unconscious motivations. You've got the South Node in the 8th house, you've got Pluto in the 12th, you've got all that energy building in the 4th house. Something to do with how you think, how you intuit, how you understand things, that can again stimulate some talents that are latent from another life, or from earlier this life, or from an inherited pattern. Jupiter, of course, will also be squaring your first house. So that's going to give you a lot of dynamism, especially as it's ruling you. And it also rules your 10th house of career, which it's opposing. And so there's going to be a lot of dynamism there, growing through your reputation, through your career, through your social status. And Jupiter is squaring your 7th house. And so basically from the end of May until June of 2025, you've got Jupiter really poking at the structure of your life, yourself, your home, and your sense of security, your relationships, and your work and social status, your career and social status. So really, really wonderful for Pisces. The one downside of Jupiter in Gemini, speaking as someone who has Jupiter in Gemini, is that it is actually a little bit chaotic. It does spread you a bit thin. It gets you interested in all kinds of things, but it's very difficult to narrow the focus. So here, Pisces, my advice to you that I rarely follow myself is that you should narrow your focus, make lists, just select a few things that you need to accomplish to keep yourself really focused. And again, that depends on your natal chart, but I happen to have Jupiter I have Jupiter in Gemini natally, and I have Saturn in Pisces natally. So if you are like me and you're born anytime in sort of late February, mid to late February, and into the first few days of March of 1966, you're my tribe, and you have Jupiter squaring Saturn. Otherwise, for the rest of you, I invite you to experience my life and the inside of my head for a few weeks out of this year. So you're going to have a square from Saturn to Jupiter twice, once in August, on the 19th of August, and another one on the 24th of December. And that square can feel like a bit of a push and pull, but it's actually quite helpful because it'll help you to rationalize and be more serious and be more committed and follow through on things that you may have overcommitted to. You may have overdone it, overextended yourself in some way. I'd have to see your chart to know how that might look for you. But so basically, Saturn is going retrograde at 19 degrees of Pisces in your first house. It goes between 3 and 19 degrees this year in your first house. and it retrogrades backwards to the 18th and 17th degree, while Jupiter is moving forward through the 17th and 18th degree of Gemini. And then it squares, and that square will happen in the middle of August, precisely on the 19th. So you'll be feeling it for several days on either side of that, but the exact is the 19th of August. And then that is with Jupiter conjunct Mars in the fourth house. So there's something really intense going to happen around housing, around family, around what makes you feel secure, what is necessary in terms of your emotional security, psychological well-being, even your material security, and so on. And then, of course, in December, we get the same thing again, this time with Saturn going direct. Jupiter is still direct, and that's at 14 degrees. And so that's something that is building up to, or is it Jupiter retrograde at that point? Gosh, now I'm sorry, I don't remember. But anyway, let's say 14 degrees anyway of Gemini. Maybe they've reversed and now Jupiter is retrograde. I think it is indeed retrograde at that point. Jupiter is retrograde going into the 14th degree, and Saturn is direct at that point. So intense times where you're going to be challenged personally. There might be something around the house and home or around what makes you feel secure that's going to have an impact on relationships, an impact on your the role that you play out in the world. It's not bad. It's an adjustment. Squares are an adjustment. Look at me. I lived through it. This is in my birth chart. But just to say that it's very personal for Pisces, very significant because it's your ruler and because you've got Saturn in your first house. So this is really very personal and quite strong for Pisces in 2024. I don't think you get another Pluto square, or rather Saturn square Jupiter in 2025. I'll double check that, but we'll get back to that another time. This is about 2024, and it's already enough on our plate as it is. I think we have covered, have we? No, we haven't covered all these things. I've jumped the gun here. So we're going now into September. We went forward into December, but we forgot about September through November. September is going to see on the 4th of September a shift of Mars from your 4th into your 5th house. Mars will be trining your first house. It's going to be deeply empowering. It's going to bring you a lot of energy, a lot of drive, a lot of commitment. Mars in the 5th house can be great for creative exploits. It can be great for love relationships, really getting excited about somebody new in your life, or it can be around children. There may be potentially some friction around that as well. Mars rules your 2nd house. It rules your where's Mars? 9th house as well. So it's also a trine, a Mars trine to your 9th, which it rules, which is very, very good. But Mars ruling the 2nd house may be that you're finding new creative ways to make money. Or there may be some issues with the children, your children, or dealing with children in general in your life. It can be about engaging in sports, engaging in some kind of new activity, a new creative pursuit, or a hobby that you really feel excited about, you're really committed about, that you really value. And so either way, it's quite helpful. Having Mars in the 5th, it's a lucky house, and it's ruling the 9th. And ruling the 2nd. So there is something here that can generate some kind of fortune, potentially, or meaning good luck, not necessarily not amassing a fortune, but it can be something that's actually quite beneficial for you. Can be very dynamic in terms of your love life, for example, bringing you all kinds of passion and interest into your love life. And what else have we got? Oh, yes. And of course, so it carries on through from September into October. And then it goes into November, and it starts to arrive in late November in your 6th house. So Mars then goes to the 6th degree of Leo in your 6th house, and it will station and then turn retrograde and go right back through the 5th house again. So you basically have Mars in your 5th house, trining your 1st house, trining your 9th house, which it rules, ruling by square your 2nd house. And that's going to super energize you basically from September all the way through April 2025 with this dip into Leo in the middle. So then from April into early June, it goes back into your sixth house. So we have this time of the frame of reference, let's say between early September up until early June, where you essentially have almost like 9.5, almost 10 months of Mars in the fifth or in the sixth house. So you're going to be extremely busy, extremely motivated, feeling creative, feeling a real strong sense of drive. Maybe a lot going on in terms of your kids or in terms of other projects, in terms of your creative impulses, in terms of education as well. Fifth house is education. Second house can represent learning. You still have Uranus in your third house. So that's also another thing there that can impact you. So yeah, that's intense. That's very, very intense. And then at the 3rd of November, the first week of November, that's when that opposition happens between Pluto in your 11th, at the end of the 11th house, and Mars at the end of your 5th house. So exciting times for Pisces, really, really big stuff. And then there is the very first eclipse that's going to be happening in your axis of Pisces and Virgo. So in your first house, there's a lunar eclipse that's happening, although the nodes themselves stay in the second house and eighth house axis. So it's still something to do with money, still something to do with how you earn or who is caring for you or who you care for. Or what are your values? But this now eclipse, this partial lunar eclipse is happening at 25 degrees of Pisces, and it's conjunct Neptune. So of course that means that the sun is in your 7th house at 25 degrees of Virgo. So something here very powerfully engaging you, connecting with somebody else, with your relationship energy, with how you need to show up in relationships. This is where Saturn will help you in the first house, having good, clear boundaries, having a sense of responsibility as well. Yeah, we'll definitely be covering that again. So that's the 18th of September, announcing this new axis of eclipses that we're going to get as of middle of January 2025 until mid 2026. So this is Pisces is then going to have that north node going through it, taking the focus into Pisces and Virgo for a year and a half. But not yet, not in 2024, except in that September blink of an eye, where we have that partial lunar eclipse. Then in October, the last eclipse of the year is on the 2nd of October, and that is the Libra solar eclipse. It's an annular eclipse. That means that there's a fire around the moon. The moon doesn't completely cover the sun, so there's kind of a ring of fire, which I find particularly beautiful. It's an annular eclipse, meaning ring. That is at 10 degrees of Libra, and that again is still in your 8th house. So something now with conjunction to Mercury in the 8th. On the south node, you're letting go of something here in the 8th. It might be around relationships or intimacy, or about shared resources, or about money coming to you from other people. There may be something being held back, or something that you're just giving up on. That could look like that. It can also be where you recognize certain patterns of unconscious behavior, especially as we've got Pluto there in the 12th. There may be some recognition of unconscious patterns, family issues, family secrets, things that are not really clear to the open. It's more like secretive stuff that people are not really aware of, but that you're letting go of. It's no longer it's either no longer there for you, or you're no longer interested in any case, you're moving away from that. So Pisces, I think we've done it. I think we covered the year. Those are the things that I think are extremely important. Obviously, Jupiter is a really significant planet for 2024 for everyone, but most especially for Pisces and of course Sagittarius, because that is the ruler of those signs. And so it's quite a blessing, but it's a mixed blessing because there's a bit of work involved in that as well, given that Saturn is there in Pisces too. So I wish you every success in 2024, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.